I said we will have a real cool time tonight. I said we will have a real cool time tonight.
Hello, I'm Cone from Sum 41. This is my show, Cone's Cave, right here on Adobe Radio. This is Season 4, Episode 2. And I have a good one tonight because I have my old friend, one of my oldest friends now, and not only that, my bandmate. I have Dave Brownsound on my show this week. The nicest man in rock music, the greatest guitar player in our genre of music. Yes, he is. Don't even second guess it. He is the best guitar player in our genre of music. And I've known Dave now since 1994. We went to high school together. We grew up in Ajax, Ontario, Canada. He went to a elementary school called Duffins Bay. I went to an elementary school called Southwood Park. And then we both went to the same high school, which was called Exeter High School. It's no longer. That high school is only around for, 8 years or something. And every time we say to people from Ajax or around the town of Ajax, we're like, yeah, we all went to Exeter High School. Some 41's from Exeter High School. Everyone's like, what the hell is Exeter High School? No one knows about it because it was only around for, maybe 10 years max. Like 92 to 2000 or 2002. And now it's some kind of other school that's not a high school. But anyway, that's where I met Dave. And he was in a band, a metal band called Embodiment. And I was in a band, which we called by the end Second Opinion. His band was a death metal band. And we used to call him, early on, we used to call him Death Metal Dave. And my band was a grunge band. Derek's band was a grunge band too. His band was called Eternal Death. It was very, very grungy, even though it had like a death metal name. We all met in 9th grade in separate bands. And Sum 41 was formed in 96, and we all joined at different points. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to give you the whole history of Sum 41. You can look that up. My point is, I'm happy Dave's on the show, and it's an important episode this week, all laughing aside, because September 11th is coming up, and it's been 23 years since September 11th, 2001, when that horrific terrorist attack on New York City and the Twin Towers happened. And so Dave and I are going to talk about that day and what we were doing and how we were feeling, where we were, and all of that stuff. For me, I can still remember the whole day, everything that happened. From waking up, we were in LA, from waking up to what was said to us, what we did after. I'm not going to give anything away because it's all in the conversation, but I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I've said this before, I don't have a great memory, but I can really, certain things I can remember like it was yesterday. And that is one day I can really remember like it was yesterday, September 11th, 2001. So we do talk about that day. We also talk about Dave starting to play guitar as a young teenager, how he got into music, how he got into metal in Ajax, what started him on his path to playing guitar and to where he is now. We talk about that. It's always interesting how people start to play music, and people that become popular in music and become successful in music, it's always interesting how they got to that point. So we'll hear Dave's story of how he became a guitar player in the little town of Ajax. And I will tell you, growing up in Ajax is different than Ajax is now. When we grew up in Ajax, it was population 40,000, if that, maybe even a little bit less than 40,000 people. Now, it is over 120,000 people in Ajax. When we were growing up, there was not even a movie theater. There was no mall. There were strip plazas, not a lot of restaurants. There's like one bar in the whole town called the Wallace Arms that we eventually went to quite often. So I think that's a big reason why we all started playing music in a way, is because of boredom. There was nothing to do. I mean, definitely couldn't have foreseen where this band ended up in the future, growing up in a little town like Ajax. But it was one of those dreams that we all had that got fulfilled. And, playing in a band with Dave is so cool because, like I said, he's like the greatest guitar player in our genre of music. And I'm just in awe of his guitar solos and the way he plays the riffs and all that kind of stuff. And in 2005, he left the band and he went on to pursue his own band called Brown Brigade, which was a metal band, and many other bands like Black Cat Attack, etc., Organ Thieves as well. And he was away from our band for 10 years. 10 years. And then he came back to our band in 2015. And I'm happy to say he's around now till the end. And the end is not far from now. The end is January 30th, 2025. That is going to be the last Sum 41 show in Toronto. So I want to get to the conversation with my brother Dave Brownsound after I play a song that we released, the first single we released when Dave rejoined the band. The song is off of our 2016 album, 13 Voices. The single was Fake My Own Death. Here it is. Then we'll take a little break, and then we'll get right into the conversation with Dave. All right, this is Cone's Cave right here on Adobe Radio, and I'm Cone from Sum 41, and this week I have a fellow bandmate on the show. I have the one and only Dave Brownsound on the show. This year marks the 30th anniversary of meeting Dave and Derek in 1994 in Ajax, Ontario at Exeter High School, where we all went to high school. 30 years this year I've known those guys for. So happy to have Dave on the show. Let's get right into the conversation right now.
I mean, I have a pretty good memory of what we were doing on 9/11. I mean, do you remember? You remember it pretty well? Like, we were obviously in LA in the studio.
we were doing that the kind of like the thing for what's it called? K-Rock, the K-Rock Christmas record. We were with Tenacious D.
Yeah. So we went into the studio September 10th, 2001, and started the song with Tenacious D. And then the next day, obviously, was September 11th. So I was sharing a room, I think, with Derek, and Matt was in town, our friend Matt.
Yeah.
Right? And so he was staying in our room too, and we woke up to the news. But so maybe talk about like what your kind of morning was like, and what happened with you.
Well, it was just kind of like me and Steve sitting there. We were sharing a room at the time because we were both snorers. So we were stuck in the snoring room, and we ended up waking up to a phone call at like 10 in the morning. And I think Steve was still a bit partied out from the night before because it was the Slayer release party, right?
Yeah.
And all we heard was our tour manager, a guy named Jeff Marshall. And he just has this monotone delivery no matter what the situation is. And it didn't matter if it was like September 11th. So he was like, you guys awake? We're like, yeah. He's like, turn on TV. Fucking world's burning down. And we were just like, what are you talking about? So we turn on this TV and we literally saw the second plane go into the building. And we didn't register at all. It took us a few minutes to figure out if this was really happening or not. And, after, finding out that something of this magnitude was actually happening, our room just went super quiet. Because what do you do? How do you deal with something like this happening in New York in modern times? I mean, this is some like movie plot type business going on, and it was the feeling was just absolute. I don't know, like the feeling. Yeah, I can't even describe the amount of things that were going on in my mind as to what was going to happen next.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, what the news was almost portraying was, which made everything even more frightening, was like, America is under attack.
Yeah, I mean, that was the headline, right? And it's hard. It's hard. I mean, looking for the reason, people are still looking to the reason. And I mean, there's even historians who are pointing back to, the late 1600s, when, the Ottoman Empire was trying to invade. There's still only one, reason as to why it could have happened. And that's, hatred.
Yeah. Yeah, we were on a Blink 182 tour at the time. So this was like, we were coming through LA on tour with Blink, and then we stopped in the studio with Tenacious D. Then this happened. So we obviously the whole tour got canceled at that moment, and then we kind of drove our bus up the coast to Canada to like BC.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we like Jeff phoned us back and was just like, "We're getting out of here. We're gonna drive." And the question of like, well, what's going on with the tour? It didn't even register at the time because, I mean, we were seeing things like, this is the beginning of World War III. This is the beginning of this. This is the beginning of that. And I think our decision hurt our relationship with Blink at the time too, which kind of sucked. But I mean, we were about to be trapped in America, and from what we were hearing and what we were seeing, this was the beginning of something really, really serious.
Yeah, I can't remember. Did Blink continue? So we dropped off the tour, but did they continue or did they cancel their tour too?
As far as I remember, they continued on with the tour.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I remember. Yeah. I mean, that was a thing where in Europe too. I think after that all happened, we were going to go to Europe with them, and they didn't want to go, and we still went, and that was like a thing too.
Well, that got turned around because the interviews that we did, I don't know what happened or what was said, but somehow the interviewers got to like made the point of saying things like, you know, we were going because we were brave and Blink stopped because they weren't. And it was just complete dribble.
Yeah.
And what would be known as clickbait today.
Yeah, I think they kind of like took what we said and kind of twisted it in a way of us saying like, oh, like Blink are wimps for not going to Europe. We're still going to go. But we didn't, I don't remember ever saying that.
Yeah, there was no kinda. It was straight twisted because back then it was like, you know, we went to Britain, we were a new band. And back then, the only thing that sold magazines for, you know, the top media publications out there were things like absolute like conflict between this band. Yeah. You know, it was some tabloid garbage and really, really weak journalism in my opinion.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it kind of did put a rift between us and Blink for a while.
Yeah. The fallout was crap, and I think it really hurt the genre a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so 9/11 happens, and then obviously the aftermath was George W. Bush, who was in power, needed to retaliate somehow. And, that guy's just a fool. And his retaliation was, let's go invade Iraq, when everyone knew that was the wrong move. What were you feeling about that kind of stuff? Like, I remember we were all really pissed off about it. And being Canadian, it's like, it's hard to like speak up about stuff back when we're 21, 22, 23 years old and being Canadian at the same time. But obviously we were unhappy about it and we knew it was the wrong move.
Well, I mean, I felt the same way. I felt like we have, to the south of us in the United States, we have a complete moronic puppet in control, and he is about to villainize an entire country because the way it was being reported, it was that Iraq had done this. Meanwhile, it was an organization that, believed that taking down the United States was the way to basically show the world that they have power. And it's all like we circle back around to the fact that it's fueled by hatred. And based on what's gone on in history, over the past 1,000 years, it's not surprising that it stemmed from like patriotism, religion. Like, there's been so many things that have caused conflict over in the Middle East, and the Middle East hasn't had any resolution to conflict or any rest from conflict, for like since its existence. People have been trying to take it over, and I think that the retaliation on the part of the terrorist organization that made 9/11 happen, I didn't support it, but I think that the wrong retaliation on our part was to blame an entire country. And, unfortunately, as Canadians, we get looped into that because we're part of North America. And I just feel like people were wrongfully accused, and it made people that were angry at the attack angry at another country, and it became country versus country as opposed to, the military versus this terrorist organization.
Yeah, and then you have, you know, the U.S. going in and, you know, going into Iraq, and so many people died, like, you know, kids and children and tons of people for no reason. Like, you know, there was no proof, there was no weapons of mass destruction, there was no anything. And I think most logical people knew that. But I think, you know, there were some people in the U.S. that just thought something had to be done. Like, go get them. Get them somehow. They attacked us. Go get them. And that's a big problem, you know, to get, you know, those kind of emotions going. And so I think George W. Bush he felt like he had to do something. He just obviously did the wrong thing.
Obviously, as the you know, at that time, you know, the president was still considered to be like the world's leader, you know, and I think for sure he had to do something according to the people around him. But I think that you're talking about a guy who kept on saying, well, you know, history will show whether we were correct or not. And according to history, he wasn't. Like, according to history, he was just easily led. And that's, you know, that kind of seems to be the ongoing theme with presidents like George Bush, that just they'll just do what they're told. And unfortunately, like, it's the people that aren't in power, the people that are citizens of these nations, that have to deal with the fallout of the decisions that are made.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's kind of what's going on in Iraq right now too. Dealing with basically this, you know, the same thing, just having a country invade them for no reason.
Exactly.
I do like, you know, there's some things after all this happened, you know, artists like we did, obviously, a song, you know, Still Waiting, because of this whole thing. And, you know, lots of bands were coming out with that kind of stuff. I like when that was kind of, you know, all that stuff was happening. It was a good thing. And Fat Mike from NoFX has Fat Records, and he was releasing compilations called Rock Against Bush. And we ended up, do you remember recording that? Because we ended up being on it, and we recorded a song that wasn't on any album called Moron, because, you know, it's like titled after George W. Bush being a moron. I don't really remember recording that song. I do remember being on the compilation, being asked by Fat Mike to be on it. I don't really remember recording it, but and I hadn't heard it for a long time. Do you remember anything about that song?
I don't remember where it was recorded. It was done so fast. Like, it was literally like a day and a half to 2 days thing. Like that Queen, the Queen cover that we did.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of like, okay, you got a couple days off, go in the studio, get this done. And Derek had the song, you know, kind of preloaded. I think he might have been ready to throw that on what's it called? Either Does This Look Infected, or it was going to go for Chuck. Yeah, because it was around that time, right?
Yeah, 2004, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I mean, also, I mean, you could tell with our music that if you just kind of listen to the lyrical content and the way we were playing, I don't know. I think the current events of that period had a serious impact on our writing and the way we played.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think a song like Moron came out of that because we were all really, really angry with what was going on and you know, what was happening to people that didn't necessarily deserve the outcome from something that they're, you know, someone in their country committed. What's up? I'm Dave Brownsound of Sum 41. I'm hanging out with my buddy, my high school friend, my brother, my travel buddy, and my bandmate Cone McCaslin. and we're in Cone's Cave.
Yeah, what'd I tell you? Dave, the nicest man in rock. 100%. This is Cone's Cave, like he said, and I'm Cone from Sum 41. This is my show on iDoby Radio, and it's not over yet. I still have more to show you of my conversation with my brother, my 30-year-old friend. He's not 30. We're both 44. My 30-year-old friendship with my friend Dave Brownsound. All right, let's talk about some music now. And earlier in the show, I played you the first single we released once Dave rejoined the band. Now I'm going to play you what I think has a song that has one of his greatest guitar solos in it. And it's off of our 2019 album, Order and Decline. The song is called Out for Blood. We'll play that. I want you to listen to Dave's guitar solo in this, and then we're going to get back into the conversation.
Let's talk about, I know what you were kind of into in high school, but let's talk about when you started playing music and started kind of playing guitar, and when you wanted to, like, in your own mind, thought like, maybe I want to be in a band, maybe I want to do this. I know, like, when you're 14 or 13 years old, you don't ever have like a thing of like, I'm going to do this for a living. That's always like a pipe dream that's never going to happen. Luckily, we were lucky people that it did happen to. But what were you kind of like heavily influenced by when you first started? I know there's like Anthrax and lots of metal stuff, but what made you think like, I want to be a guitar player now?
It depends. It was a mixture of certain things. I mean, I was always kind of drawn to music that I identified with. So, and I loved heavy metal. And one of the reasons why I got drawn to heavy metal was because of Bring the Noise with Anthrax and Public Enemy, because I loved Public Enemy at the time. And all of a sudden there was a melding of these two worlds. And, you know, Run DMC I loved too. And I kind of, I guess maybe they were kind of the stepping stone to something like Bring the Noise, because of songs like The King of Rock having, you know, heavier guitars in them.
Yeah.
And it was a night at, you remember that old pizza joint called Pizza Pino?
Yeah, of course. I used to go there like almost twice a week when we were in elementary school.
I know, right? And because it was like a gathering place, but they would also have live bands. And my cousin was playing in a band called Nemesis at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a guitar player named Mike Sarson. And when he was packing up after a gig one night, he let me play his guitar. And I was shit at it, like garbage. Just picked it up and started plucking away. And he was just kind of like, hey, if you ever feel like having some lessons, let me know. And I was like, okay, maybe. But then, you know, one day I was sitting in the basement with my cousin Vaughn. We were playing Battletoads, and it was his turn because I died, because that game is hard as hell. And I'm sitting on the couch. I pick up a guitar, kind of lay it across my lap and start strumming it. And he just comes over, picks the guitar up, because I was sitting like with it on my lap like Jeff Healey would play it.
Yeah.
And he just kind of turned it up right. And then he proceeded to show me how to read tab. And he was like, learn this one. It's super easy. It's on one string. So it ended up being a tab for Cotton Amash. And I think at that moment, putting together, you know, the fact that I could, you know, solve this puzzle with my hands and my ears, and it just all made sense. And I was like, oh, I could really like learn this thing and have some fun. But as far as like deciding I was going to play in a band, I don't know if I ever really made that decision. I decided that it'd be awesome to play in a band, but I also knew the reality of being a guitar player. Like, we're a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was going to fix guitars. I was going to be a tech. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, was there's like something like, you know, so Anthrax started the journey kind of like Cotton Amash, but like, was there like through like, no, because we weren't really into the same thing in the beginning. Then we all kind of came into Sum 41. They were all into punk rock. Was there one band through those years, like even when you're like kind of into your later teens, early 20s, that you kind of were like, that's my band. I like everything they're saying. That's kind of who I am.
Well, I mean, there was, of course, to pick one, it would be impossible.
Yeah, it's hard.
So it would be definitely, as far as punk rock goes, what got me drawn into punk rock was Strung Out.
Yeah.
Just the musicianship and the application and the melding of like two genres. And from there, it just like, of course, it went to No Effects, and then, you know, discovered some popular stuff like Goldfinger, and just this whole world got opened up to me. But I think what drew me to punk rock the most was the fact that, you know, everybody was a lot more accepting of everybody. It didn't matter who you were, what you were, where you came from. We could go together and just be a part of something really cool at the Chameleon Cafe. And that's what drew me to it the most. I got to say, like, music probably took a back seat to that, which is a strange thing to say.
Yeah, like kind of like the community aspect of punk.
Yeah, exactly. Because I'd been in the metal community before, but it was just filled with, you know, a bunch of grown ass people like just smoking pot, talking about how they were going to be famous. And meanwhile, you know, I go to punk rock and it's just like, yeah, we don't really care about being famous. We just want to hang out. And that's what I was interested in at the time, because I mean, it was in the metal community in Ajax at that time. It was just, nobody was going anywhere. They just kept on talking about it and not doing anything.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Both those kind of scenes, like the metal scene, the punk scene, seem to still have. They both had kind of a lot of rules still, right? Like you're not metal enough, you don't have long enough hair, your jeans aren't ripped enough, Then in the punk thing, it's like you're not punk enough, you don't have a mohawk, dye your hair green, or like your thumbs aren't fast enough, So there's like the rules. There were still rules in both genres.
Yeah, and it's so funny because then we eventually we got to meet those bands that I guess all the people in the scene were assuming were making these rules.
Yeah.
And they were just like, yeah, man, fuck, just come as you are. Who cares, man? let's hang out. And meanwhile, yeah, you still got people in Ajax being like, nope, your Liberty spikes are like a little too short.
Yeah, you can't have ballads. There's so many. There was so many rules that, I think that you're right. Like that you assumed as a kid, but then you meet Pennywise and NoFX and Rancid, and even though Rancid's got a look and NoFX kind of has a look, and Pennywise just dressed like skateboarders. It's like you realize that they weren't setting the rules.
Yeah. I think the band, though, for me, and I discovered them a little bit later, it would have been the Vandals, man, because they were an absolute, who cares? Are you hurting anybody? Let's just do whatever you want. Express yourself any way you want. And I know people will tend to say things like, oh, well, they're not serious. And it's just like, well, that's their angle and that's what they're doing. They're making music. And to me, like the way that they make songs and the way that they can create lyrics that honestly have like some kind of like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like can make you think and make you laugh at the same time. That's some social commentary that is absolutely profound and well written, and I think that they get very, very underrated because people think that they're like Weird Al Yankovic.
Yeah, I know. They was never a serious band. That's just the Vandals. It's they weren't political and they just wanted to have fun. It's
exactly.
To each their own. Every band had their thing, and that's the Vandals thing.
Yeah, and I dare any political band to go and try and get in a lyrical battle with those dudes, because you'll lose every time. Dave Quackenbush is a monster lyrically.
Yeah, and then obviously with the Vandals, you probably then you had the humor of Blink-182 in the early days.
Yeah, totally.
Tons of bands kind of came, like look at even Bowling for Soup right now. They're kind of a comedy pop punk band. Bands like that came after the Vandals, and I think the Vandals kind of paved that way of like, you don't have to like be so serious and talk about the government all the time. You don't have to, you can just have fun and just do whatever you want to do type of thing.
Exactly. And I think that maybe those bands were born out of the Vandals, but I mean, who knows? Because there was also Chicks Dig It. You know what I mean? Like there's tons of bands like what's it called? The Buzzcocks, things like that. And there was always kind of like lighthearted lyrical punk rock out there. It's just, the God Save the Queens tend to, because of its rebellious nature, tends to draw in more kids, kind of like gangster rap did.
Yeah.
there was great conscious rap going on, with Tribe and the whole the Jungle Brothers, the Cocoa Brothers, like stuff like that. But everybody was drawn to Ice-T and NWA. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Would you say that Anthrax is probably your favorite metal band of all time?
Easily.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the same reasons, they sang about everything under the sun, from comic books to lighthearted inside jokes to, politics. They don't care, and they have such a punk rock attitude. And I don't think that New York hardcore would be the same without the influence of Anthrax, and vice versa. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things. I think Anthrax was a stepping stone to getting into punk rock. And and plus Scott Ian, like when I was a kid, he was just the coolest looking guitar player, man. Like no long hair, had this badass beard, and didn't tend to play like those ugly ass BC Riches and you know, those things that look like they came out of some, you know, some nightmare. He was playing like Charvel Surfcasters and stuff like that. So yeah. And do I get to pick a song?
You can pick a song, yeah.
Well, let's go with my kind of like my departure point. Let's go with Cotton and Mosh. It's the first riff I ever learned.
Cool. Cotton and Mosh it is.
Little Cotton and Mosh, little clip from Anthrax. This is Cone's Cave. I'm Cone from Sum 41. And that is, and you just heard my conversation with me and my old friend, Dave Brownsound of Sum 41. My first guest I've had of Sum 41 on my show with iDoby Radio. I got to take a quick break. I'll be right back. All right, this is Cone's Cave. I'm Cone from Sum 41, right here on iDoby Radio. You heard Dave and I, Dave Brownsound from our band, Sum 41, talking about September 11th, 2001, and what it was like for us on that day, what we were doing, what was going through our minds. And I should say, I mean, what we were going through was not even half as bad as what the people in New York City were going through and the people that were in the World Trade Center or had family members in the World Trade Center and the first responders that had to go into the World Trade Center to try and rescue people. I mean, our hearts were going out to all of those people. And it just sprung in my head that I saw an interview not too long ago when Russia invaded the Ukraine. And I remember seeing this little clip of something George W. Bush was saying about Russia invading Ukraine. And he was, you know, at a convention of some sorts, and he was talking about how bad it was and how senseless it was of Russia to invade Ukraine. But he slipped up and he actually said Russia invading Iraq. And it was a really awkward moment because I think even he now today knows how foolish it was for him to hit the button and invade Iraq. Here's a little clip of that.
In contrast, Russian elections are rigged. Political opponents are imprisoned or otherwise eliminated from participating in the electoral process. The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, anyway. 75.
All fun and games, George W. Bush. A lot of people were killed when George W. Bush decided the U.S. was going to invade Iraq for no reason. Let's remember, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for this November, but I will say, let's really, really think about voting for someone who has some intellect, some knowledge on things, some compassion, someone who's not going to invade a country for no reason, someone who unites a country and doesn't divide a country, unites a world, because the U.S. is a world power, the strongest world power in the world. Let's pick a leader for America that unites people all around the world and not divide people. And again, I'm not telling you who to vote for. You can do your own research. I think you'll come to the same conclusion I would if I could vote in the US. That's it for me. I'm out of time. I want to thank my guest, Dave Brownsound of Sum 41. We're on tour right now in the US, our final US tour. Come see us. Check out the dates, sum41.com. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to Adobe Radio for having Cone's Cave on their station. I'll talk to you next Monday. I gotta go.